Welcome, everybody. If we've never met, I do see familiar faces. I'm Leah Fygetakis. I'm one of the assistant deans with the Office of Intercultural Education and your LGBTQIA advisor. So this program is part of our October LGBTQIA History Month. And I just wanted to note, I hope you've seen our lovely spam, and there are individual ads for some of the different programs we've got, but it's an embarrassment of riches this week. Along with today, tomorrow we have a panel of students who have studied abroad. The panel is entitled Queer Perspectives in Study Abroad, and 3 continents are covered. I think it's Jordan, Japan, Italy, Germany, and Sweden. And one of the students actually got to do a lot of LGBT work on their study abroad experience. And on Thursday, the executive director of Dignity will be talking on queer theology. And then our exhibit, our photo exhibit will open, which is called Limitless LGBTQ African Immigrant Narratives. And I was working with a student in getting the photos printed. They are stunning. They're like 24 by 36, and I really encourage you to stop by the Jewett Sculpture Gallery to take a look, and even better, if you can attend the reception on October 24th, that would be great. The photographer, Michael Uwana, will be there, and he'll share some of his own kind of experience and what it was like to take the photographs and how he worked with the people that were in them. And it's just, I'm really looking forward to that. And finally, on Saturday the 27th, there'll be a film called, it's relatively recent, Happy Birthday, Marcia. And it portrays the life of transgender artist and activist Marcia Pay It No Mind Johnson in the hours before she ignited the 1969 Stonewall riots. So I hope to see you again at some of these other events. So at this point, I want to just thank our student group, Wildcards. If you don't know what it is, Catherine will tell you, and the Committee on Lectures and Cultural Events. These are kind of the co-sponsors along with the LGBTQ office in bringing this here today. So at this point, I would like to introduce Catherine Pugh, who will introduce our speaker. Thanks.
Hello. I know. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Most of you know me already, but I'm the secretary for Wellesley Wildcards, which is our organization on campus for students who are asexual and/or aromantic. And we do a lot of fun things throughout the semester, like watch movies and eat dinner together and draw memes for each other. So you should definitely come check us out. If you want to be added, the Facebook and Google groups are both private, so you should speak to one of the e-board members if you would like to be added to the group.
That's us.
It's very secret. And confidential. So, yeah, the group's been around for about 4 years, and this is the first kind of big open event we've done, so it's really exciting to see you all here. There's often not a lot of love or attention paid to asexual or aromantic people in the community, so it's exciting to be part of Queer History Month and kind of get to establish our place in the community. And here to talk more about that is Julie Sandra Decker, author of this book here that I am holding, called The Invisible Orientation, An Introduction to Asexuality. And since she knows more about it than I do, I will let her continue.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for having me. So before I get started, I want to let everyone know there's a camera right here that I'm just taping this for my YouTube channel. So if you walk in front of the camera and you realize afterwards you don't want to be on the video, feel free to just let me know and I will edit you out. If you say something in the room and you realize you don't want your voice on the film, that's fine too, just let me know. Can everyone hear me toward the back? Am I talking loud enough? All right, an okay sign, that's wonderful. Okay, so.
I got a request to speak up just a bit.
Oh yes? Okay. I'll try to talk a little bit louder. I don't have a microphone, but I went to a music school and they taught us how to use our diaphragm. So I'll try to reach you. So I'm here to talk about asexuality and the LGBTQ plus community, past, present, and future. And I already got an introduction, but my name is Julie Saunders-Decker. I'm also known online as Swank Ivy or Ivy because those are my online handles that I've had for a million years, or at least since the late 90s, same thing. So you can call me any of those, I will answer to them. I'm an asexuality educator, author, blogger, YouTube personality, and speaking of YouTube, if you are interested in looking up any of my videos, you can take a card. If you are interested in this, this book here, I have some information for you if you want to pick up a flyer. One of them is just an info sheet. One of them is a slightly more fun asexual bingo. It's not so fun to go through, but it's fun to make fun of it, and it has a little bit of information on the bottom about the book. So if you want to pick one of these up, these are free to take. About me personally, I am asexual and aromantic, and I'm not going to assume that everybody here knows exactly what those mean. For me personally, I identify as asexual as a person who doesn't experience sexual attraction. It's a very common interpretation of that term. Some people will define it slightly differently. I tend to use that definition. And aromantic, very similar. I don't experience romantic attraction. I'm not going to go into a 101 kind of course about that today because I heard somebody wrote a book about it. You can check it out. But I am going to talk about how we fit into the history and the past, present, and future of this overall umbrella movement. Before I get started into the meat of this presentation, I will say that there may be a few slightly uncomfortable topics. I'm not going to be real explicit about any of them, but I may bring up some references to harassment, coercion. It's just, I may make reference to depression and some other difficult subjects to discuss, but I will give individual warnings as they come up as well. So one more thing regarding feedback. If anybody wants to ask me any questions after the fact, you're welcome to either write on an index card that most of you, all of you should have received one, and we'll collect them at the end, and if assuming we have time, I will go through them and answer to the best of my ability. Personal questions are okay. You can ask me my opinion or my experience about something. I'm okay with talking with you. But you know, if something is something I don't want to talk about in front of a group, you know, I just won't get to the question. And if you find that I haven't addressed something that you're curious about, you're welcome to email me. I've got my info on these cards. Okay, so let's get into past, present, and future with a little bit of, I'm going to talk about the history very briefly. I'm going to talk mostly about currently and some of the future someday after a sip of water. So some people will say, where did asexuality come from? Why are people suddenly talking about this so much? It's just this new orientation that popped out of nowhere. That is not the case. One of the oldest sexuality studies, this is very outdated these days, but the Kinsey scale is well known. It's from the 40s. And asexuality actually popped up on the Kinsey scale. Kinsey was mostly studying sexuality not as a black and white, but more of a continuum as to like how exclusively straight, how exclusively gay somebody could be sliding around a scale. But X was asexual, people who didn't experience any of those attractions at all. So we popped up on the model as early as the 40s. But you know, in the 60s and the 70s, there was a lot of sexual revolution, which also, of course, included LGBTQ/queer / alternative sexuality, anything that they could come up with to refer to it. We randomly invented the term asexual throughout the history of talking about sexual diversity. Asexual kept popping up as like, yeah, I'm just asexual, or I'm non-sexual. This happened a lot with people who were trying to find their place, to find their identity, and if you look around on posters here and there, you'll see it in literature, you'll see it in unexpected places, but it was not organized. It was very sort of piecemeal. You'll see it here and there. I have seen a few published articles on it. Asexual and Autoerotic Women, Two Invisible Groups was an early article. It was published shortly before I was born in 1977 in a collection called The Sexually Oppressed. You can see the no image available Amazon cover. This is how hard this is to find. I've never seen a copy. It exists, I hear. This was an article that examined frequently invisible groups. Going on, there was a sexuality study, like a sample that was taken, I believe it was in the UK in the 90s, in 1994. There was a big sampling of sexual attitudes, and what happened with this group, I believe it was around 18,000 people were surveyed about their experiences and their attitudes, and 1% of that group kept coming up in the data as not experiencing any of this attraction. And it was from this sample that Anthony Bogart in 2001 wrote an article saying, hey, this 1% it hasn't been studied. Let's study it. And this is where that 1% figure, if you've ever read anything about asexuality, you probably see the 1% thrown around a lot. This is where it came from, is Anthony Bogart studying it from this older sampling from the UK. Not necessarily that the UK is representative of everyone, but it's at least some math, it's at least some research that was done. And Anthony Bogart has actually gone on to write a book about it, more from an academic standpoint, but he's frequently contacted as an academic contact whenever anybody wants to talk about asexuality. So personally, computers looked like that when I was first starting to explore what this meant to me. There was no internet. There was an internet, but I think it was mostly for the military. And there were certainly no social groups organizing online. I invented the word non-sexual to refer to myself. I just knew I wasn't straight, and I wasn't sure what I was, but I just felt like I was something that was none of the above. And so I just kind of invented a word for it. I wasn't particularly broken up about it. I was just like, yeah, this is me. I guess if it changes one day, maybe it'll change one day. But I wasn't really searching for connection. But at the time, it really wasn't out there to find unless you did it in person. This is a very common story for people who are in my age group and older. So what would happen is you would seek connection, and you would say, I know I'm not experiencing what I'm supposed to experience. Okay, I'm a woman, so I'm supposed to marry a man and have some children. I know that doesn't appeal to me, and I definitely am not interested in that life, so where can I look? What is the alternative? If you're not straight, you're gay. So a lot of us have explored that. A lot of us have said, maybe I'm this, or maybe I'm something that I haven't explored. Maybe I will find the answer somewhere where people are more willing to listen to something that isn't mainstream. And that was usually queer, LGBTQ friendly communities. So in a documentary called Asexual, which I did an interview for this too, but I'm not going to talk about me. This lady up here, Barb, she described that her experience of being with a whole bunch of different partners, always just kind of trying to find someone that would do it for her. She only mentioned being with same-sex partners. I don't know if she identified as lesbian, but she only described being with other women, and she frequently just felt like she was missing something. She finally just said, I give up, this isn't for me. And when she discovered asexuality, that's what she started calling herself. Similarly, this lady here, Kathy, she did an interview for the Asexual documentary in a scene that was filmed shortly before an asexual contingent was going to march in a pride parade for the first time. I believe she said she was in her late 40s, and she had come out as a lesbian in the 80s. And she identified as a lesbian for a very long time before discovering that she's actually a homo-romantic asexual woman. And she actually said that it was scarier to come out as asexual than it was to come out as lesbian, because she didn't know she had support and she didn't have the words for it. It was very it was unknown territory, and so she found herself around people half her age trying to organize about this, kind of feeling left out in a slightly different way. But you know, she found her people and learned a lot about what kind of language we were using to talk about this common experience we were having. Oh wow, the sun is in my eyes. So we're going into the present. What you see mostly, how so much of the organizing started is of course online. This is how we do everything these days. So we're going to reach out online and say, hey, I'm feeling this, are you feeling this? Can we develop a language? If you have language, you can have a conversation. You can find other people who are similar to you. The big name in online organizing is, of course, the Asexual Visibility and Education Network, also known as AVEN. It wasn't the only game in town, especially at the time. There were these Yahoo groups and mailing lists and stuff popping up. I didn't see some of these, and others I did know about. They didn't have a coherent mission statement, really. It was just a bunch of people trying to figure out, like, who are we, and how can we find other people, you know, to figure out how to talk about this, and at least find a place that we're understood. There was a LiveJournal group. LiveJournal still exists, and then much later, of course, Tumblr. Tumblr is well known for having a lot of asexual organizing. What happened on Tumblr, like, and you can say what you want about Tumblr, but I kind of live there. I love Tumblr, and without having the connections that I found on Tumblr, I definitely wouldn't have been able to write the book that I wrote in the form that I did, because I had so much help from willing people who, despite also being asexual, they had a very different experience from me. Like, how am I going to write a subchapter about male asexual people, or asexual people of color, asexual people who have disabilities? How am I going to write about that with any authority if it's not my experience? So I have to ask somebody, what would you want everyone to know about you that's different from a white, able-bodied cis woman who's asexual? I'm obviously not going to experience the same things. So that was a great place to find other people who are having the same yet different experiences in asexuality. Also, it gave me an opportunity to talk to young people, because that is so important if you're going to continue to do activism as you get older, because the conversation does change. It's not just about what different terms we might use. It's about attitudes, it's about nuances, and if I fall out of touch with what you guys are talking about at approximately half my age, like, I'm going to become irrelevant. And you know, it's also personally satisfying to me to hear what you guys are. You're very inspiring to me at college age and younger. It's not a different world, but it kind of is. I guess you'll see when you get there. So even though Tumblr is full of discourse with a capital D, it's very important. Unfortunately, one of the side effects of Tumblr, which is kind of a blessing and a curse, is that you can find a lot of content that you didn't come there to see. Yes, you know what I mean. Oh my goodness. But the issue, I think, has been people are suddenly intersecting with populations that they didn't know about, and they're saying, this must have been invented on Tumblr. The Tumblrinas are over here creating fake identities because they want to be special. We, of course, hear a lot of that in the queer community overall, as well as especially in asexual spaces, that we're doing this to be special. We're doing this to find a label and not have the risk of being LGBTQ. So what we get a lot of is this objection: why do you think that you belong here? Because there's a perception that we don't belong, that there's something different about us, that we're not sharing enough of what defines a person as having an LGBTQ plus identity to have any place in this community, that we don't have anything to add, and that we may even make the spaces unsafe. And even if I disagree at the root level with that idea, I also want to listen to where it comes from, and the reasonable perspectives that I've mostly heard is that people fear we're going to come in with a mainstream perspective that they've had to fight against, and that we're going to make their spaces all about us. So here's the thing. Going back to this asexual documentary, there were a lot of objections from people who were some stripe of the LGBTQ rainbow. Dan Savage is pictured up there. I think he's kind of flipped on asexuality. He's mostly inclusive now, but in the documentary, he said, asexual people, you don't need to march to not do anything. You just need to stay home. And he also said that as a sex educator and advice giver, he has heard from so many people who are deeply conflicted about their kinks or something, that they choose to call themselves asexual because they're afraid of what it really means to embrace their sexuality, that it's kind of like a I give up. And that was how he interpreted it. And that's how a lot of people see it before they learn more about our experiences. But I think with someone like him, it can also be dangerous because he has a platform, and then he's telling everybody, hey, you know, these other people who are, they're queer friendly, but they're not going to be ace friendly if they believe like him. And like I said, I think that he's mostly flipped on this. I don't know entirely, but some of the other folks that are pictured here are people who said kind of ignorant things about the asexual marchers in the Pride Parade. The ladies at the top there had said, just give us 20 feet, please. They were scared of the asexual people that were marching behind them. And the folks in the bottom over there, they were saying, you're the only one who took the asexual literature. That's scary. This guy pities our poor soul. He thought he was being recruited. He thought he was being told to abstain from sex. And I think that is the very common attitude that you hear, is that we're recruiting and that we're shaming sex. And that's unfortunate because that's absolutely not what asexuality is about. But it still comes from a place that is legitimate, because for a lot of folks who have had to struggle to be proud, they have been told that being asexual would be an ideal situation, that if they would abstain, they would be saved, or they would be pure, or they would be better. And it's very hard for them to look at us and say, oh yes, you're just as queer as I am. So I think that's kind of where that comes from. That's what some of them have communicated to me. Unfortunately, you're still seeing a lot of really aggressive invalidation coming from inside the queer community. And for instance, the Trevor Project reached out to some asexual organizers saying, we are an LGBT crisis line. We help queer young people who need somebody to call if they're feeling depressed or suicidal. And we want to know, we're getting calls from people who are asexual, we don't know how to help them. Can you help us train our volunteers on this? When they advertised that they were doing this, some folks spoke up and said, I don't think you should help them. They don't need to be helped because they're invading us. They're not really part of, you know, I mean, how can you say, I think you should not help certain depressed people who are in crisis? But, you know, that's how possessive they felt of this. So what's really common is for certain stripes, especially of the asexual community, is to be identified as you're really just a straight person in disguise. If you're aromantic, if you're demisexual, gray sexual, those are some terms that I talk about in my book and my video essays. And especially if you're heteroromantic, you tend to be interpreted as if you're a straight person who is trying to get into some place that you don't belong. So if any of those arguments sound familiar, maybe it's because they're said about bisexual people too. And they've got a letter, so I don't know. Where does that leave us? So if any bisexual folks have ever heard, like, you don't belong, you're not queer enough, because you can choose to have a straight relationship, and other than your relationship, your identity doesn't matter, you don't belong here, you're probably hearing a lot of the same things that we have heard. And that's actually part of why bisexual people and asexual people have so much in common, because there is this perception. And also, incidentally, a lot of us, myself included sometimes, have identified as bisexual in certain contexts because we didn't have another box to check. So if I like everybody about the same, I guess that's the closest I'm going to get if I don't have a check mark. So in the present, we have to recognize that this rainbow flag, I mean, when we're saying, you know, pride, that rainbow does not include anything more than, say, this is the gay pride flag. It should be, it does include an awful lot of other identities that are not specifically named in that flag, but are also often invalidated, like, say, some intersex people identify as queer. You might, if you're pan, if you are trans, if you are agender. There are a lot of identities that have been questioned. And what I have found, unfortunately, is that some of the detractors who want to kick ace people out, they're also TERFs, they're also exclusionary in other ways. Not all of them, but many of them, they don't just have it out for us. So a lot of them are very possessive about their spaces, and in some cases that's legitimate because you need to have safe spaces. Sometimes it really is about safety, but it can't be rooted in hatred, and it can't be rooted in ignorance. So what I have found in person is most LGBTQ organizations are inclusive. The Lambda Literary Awards it's an award that is given out every year to a bunch of recognized LGBT books. I got nominated for one in the LGBT history, or LGBT nonfiction category. So an asexual book got nominated in a category that I didn't fit in the acronym. But they included me. They're like, yes, that makes sense. That makes sense why this is here. So a lot of the places that I've done presentations, been included in panels, have been LGBT specific or queer specific organizations and conferences. I've participated in them, been invited in them, felt welcome in them, and I've been published by several publishers or sub-sections of publishers that are specific to queer orientations. They didn't say, like, hey, we think you're weird, but we want to hear from you. You know, they treated me like, your perspective is welcome here. And that made sense to me, but then, you know, you still see this. You say, you're a cishet, get out of here. So what does a person who may be asexual but feels that they're inherently queer, what do they have to share with a broader community? First of all, it's a common misconception that asexual people are kind of just straight light, because many asexual people are trans, are non-binary, are same-sex attracted, have some other, one or more queer identities beyond asexuality, but even just on the strength of being an asexual person, there are some things that we do share. And the question is it about pride? First I want to throw this up to let you know that I'm about to share a comment where there was some invalidation presented. This was a comment where someone says, please tell me how asexuals are discriminated against. Well, if you say, please tell me, I will tell you. So there's this idea that institutional oppression is what kind of defines you as having a valid identity within this community, and that, to me, that is confusing because it suggests that hatred is where our identity comes from, and I don't believe that. So why do we want to be here, and should we let our identity mostly be about who hates us, how they hate us, what it looks like? So for asexual people, it's true that the hate and the othering tends to look a little different sometimes. It's more about invisibility versus hostility. I'm not going to say there's no hostility because I've certainly experienced my share of it, but a lot of it is based on not even being seen at all. For instance, if somebody says, give me a break, you're never going to get beat up coming out of a gay bar. I'm going to say I don't have an ace bar to come out of. So it's a different problem, and there can be a difference in how much danger you might be in and the violence of the reactions. But it is not necessarily true across the board that asexuality is just like, oh, okay, well, that's not threatening. It absolutely is threatening to some people, and I will discuss some ways that that manifests. And I will also say that with asexual people, aromantic people, a lot of the time the things that we do experience, if we say, hey, this happened to me, they'll say that happened to you because you're a woman, that happened to you because you're trans, that happened to you because you dress like that. They'll always say that whatever the asexuality aspect of yourself, that's the least relevant part of what happened. It's never important to them. So what I'm going to go into next, and I'm going to try to run through it a little quicker because I'm already at like halfway through. So the common cause of a lot of our problems is heteronormativity. This is the big word here. Oh, thank you. We are natural allies because it all forms from this experience we share of heteronormative attitudes that shape how we grow up and what is denied to us and what we experience. So what struggles do we share? Some of this stuff is going to sound really familiar even if you know nothing about asexuality, but you know anything about being an LGBTQ person. So we know about the marriage laws. Obviously, relatively recently, nationwide in the United States, there has been same-sex marriage is legal. Obviously, we are still dealing with the aftermath of that being argued about and the still existing prejudice, of course, for same-sex couples. But did you know that in some states there are still consummation laws? It sounds archaic. It is true. So people say if you didn't have sex, you can get an annulment. That's like, you don't have a real marriage. That's okay to dissolve this marriage if you find out that your spouse doesn't want to have sex with you or can't have sex with you. And some people have said like, oh wait, well isn't that about the babies? It's never about the babies. Whenever you hear that, it's never really about the babies, because no state permits an annulment on the basis of infertility. You can't annul a marriage. You can still divorce someone, but you can't annul a marriage with no fault, just because you find out that your spouse is infertile. So there has also been some discussion of with non-romantic relationships. These are things that maybe poly people, same-gender people, or if you're perceived to be the same gender, which what I mean is you might have a so-called straight marriage, but one of you might be trans, and some people are saying, oh, well that's a gay marriage, and people are misinterpreting you based on your gender. So there have been a lot of complications with these. in the asexual community, we deal with a lot of these things, but it's very broad too. We are not the only people who have had problems for not having a marriage equivalent for relationships like these. And here's something that a lot of people don't think about with immigration. When people who have citizenship in different countries get married, there's sometimes a perception that one of them is doing it to stay in the country. And they can be questioned, they can be interviewed, they can be interrogated, and they'll take the people in the marriage into separate rooms and they will ask them questions that supposedly they will answer, corroborating each other's answers if they are really married. And sometimes those questions are explicitly about sex. How often do you have sex? Where do you have sex? And they're allowed to ask these questions on the assumption that sex is always part of a real marriage. And if you're not having sex, you're probably not really married. You're fake marriage. So that exists. Job and housing discrimination. There was a study. There have been some questions about the validity of this study, which I can't go into detail, but there was a study called Intergroup Bias Toward Group X. It was about attitudes toward asexual people. And a lot of people on the survey, like a statistically significant number of people, similar to how they answered about how they felt about gay couples and trans people, they were saying that they would discriminate against asexual people to a similar extent in giving them a job or letting them rent a house. I guess on the assumption that you're a weirdo, we don't want your kind here. So I personally, I wouldn't say that this was discrimination, but I recently had the experience of renting a new house, and I'm renting like a 3-bedroom house, but I'm just one person, I don't even have any pets, and the people interviewing me, like they take my form, and I specified in the email to them, I said, I'm just one adult who I want a guest room and an office as well as a bedroom, as you know, there's nobody else. And they asked me 2 more times, they said, what are your children's names? And who else is on the lease? And I was getting concerned when they kept saying this. They kept saying, who else is here? Because they couldn't, it blew their mind that a single woman would want a house by themselves. Where's your kids? And I thought maybe they were that they were about to accuse me of like hiding another adult so I wouldn't have to pay the background fee check, you know, the money that you have to pay for everybody who lives there. You know, they kept asking this question, making it very clear that it was not expected, and I was afraid that they were going to deny me based on that. They didn't. I don't know what was going through their heads, but you know, being treated like it was really, really weird to want a house by myself, you know, that was, I think that's a very common attitude, and people with more malicious intent may act on that. Similarly, it's probably not surprising to a lot of you that some asexual people report hostile workplace cultures. This kind of data point I'm mostly basing on a story that I read about an asexual person who had a coworker who was always talking about sex at work, and she said, can you stop doing that? It makes me really uncomfortable. So the coworker began doing it on purpose more often, more explicitly. And so they took it to the manager, and the manager blamed the asexual person, said, you don't fit in here, this is just how we talk here, if you can't handle it, then maybe you're not cut out to work here, and they let her go. And you know, she was like, did I just get fired because I'm asexual? So, I mean, how can you prove it? So this might be a surprising one. Adoption denial, like why would you deny someone the chance to adopt a child just for being asexual? This was just from this gentleman's talk at the Spotlight on Asexuality. You can look this up on YouTube if you want to see the whole thing. But he mentioned an asexual couple went to a private adoption agency, and you know, as I was looking into adoption, they said, well, you look like you're a straight man and woman, how come you don't want to have your own children? Are you infertile? What's going on? And they said, we don't want to have children because we don't want to have sex with each other, we are asexual. They said, if you're asexual, you're not fit to be married. And they were denied. Just on the idea that, I guess, there is an attitude of what marriage is for, and you're not a safe place to raise children. Your household is unacceptable for kids. So moving on, anti-discrimination law. I don't have a lot to talk about here because it does change so fast. But with anti-discrimination law, what you basically want is for protected status, for it's illegal to use someone's sexual orientation to discriminate against them, and if they do, it's a hate crime. So there's very few state-related policies that mention asexuality. There are a few. It's kind of interesting that they exist, but nationally there is no protection based on sexual orientation. So let's see, moving on to the legal paper that Elizabeth Emmons wrote. This was published in Stanford Law Review. Elizabeth was arguing that as more people of college age are starting to graduate, identifying as asexual, going into the workforce, there's going to be more suits about this. There's going to be more discrimination because it's existing now and there's language about it. So of course it's going to happen. So this was a relatively long paper where Elizabeth Emmons talked about the manifestations of that and how it all comes down to compulsory sexuality. So this will be a really, it'll be a recognizable one for most of you, I think. So of course we all know this abstinence equals purity idea. There's a pressure to marry and reproduce, and this last one here where I say celibacy is meaningless if it's not a challenge. I know someone in the ACE community who said, like, I was thinking about being a nun when I was younger, and I went to my mentor and I talked about it and said, I think I'll be a perfect nun. I don't even desire sex, so it won't be hard for me. And they said, well, in that case, you're not cut out for this life because it's not a sacrifice for you. That's, what are you giving up if you're not doing this for God? So that was rough, and they didn't want to be a nun anymore. So moving on to media representation, this is a fun one. I think most of us are very familiar with the idea that sometimes media representation, you're like, oh, look, it's me. Oh, look, they're making fun of me. So we'd love to see more asexual people in the media, but it doesn't happen without costs. This picture is a character on a Canadian documentary. It's on a Canadian comedy, I believe, called Godivas. The character's name was Martin. He was hetero-romantic, asexual. They gave him hormones and he wasn't anymore. So that was fun. They fixed him, and it was funny. This is Poppy from Huge. She was aromantic, asexual. She called herself asexual by name, and she described being aromantic, not relating to a romantic situation in a movie. She was just kind of a background character, but she was really cute. She played the ukulele. She was a camp counselor. I liked her.
I was expecting that to have such a bad end.
Yeah, isn't that great? The only sad thing about that is that it was a one-off line. It was like representation, and it wasn't bad, but it was, they said the word asexual, and we all went, yes! And that was enough for us. That's our standard. This one's interesting. This is Gerald from Shortland Street. This was a soap opera in New Zealand. He was biromantic, asexual, and his entire arc was about discovering he's asexual, going through a lot of crap about it, having a realization that this is who he was, going through a relationship with a woman, a relationship with a man. It was actually really good, but at the same time they kind of implied at times that it was tied in with his obsessive compulsion and also possibly with some issues with his mom, who was very, she talked about sex very openly from the time that he was a very young person, so they kind of suggested maybe he was a little traumatized from that. But that can be some people's reality, so I didn't think it was in poor taste. It's just, I'm not sure what they were trying to say there. This is a pretty good one. I liked it. And then, like, let's get the groans going. House! Yeah! Anybody see this episode?
I watched the whole whole show.
Yeah, I like House most
It's
of the time.
simultaneously my favorite and my least favorite
Yeah.
for this episode.
Exactly, yeah. The intersex episode was terrible too. Yeah, but if you haven't seen the episode, House had, well, his Dr. Wilson, I think, had a patient saying she was asexual. She and her husband were both asexual, didn't have sex with each other. And he's like, well, I'm sure there's a medical reason, and I'll prove to you that there's a medical reason, because everybody wants sex unless they're dead, dying, or lying. And so, in short, by the end of the thing, he proved that both of them were wrong. The man had a pituitary tumor that was causing his asexuality, and the wife was lying to make the husband feel better that he couldn't satisfy her. So, they were both not really asexual. It would have been a really cool twist ending if he had the pituitary tumor removed and he's like, no, I still hate sex. That would have been awesome.
Think pituitary tumors cause?
How medically accurate is it?
Never.
Right.
Never lupus.
Wasn't it lupus once, though?
It was lupus once. He was so wrong.
Yes. So he's wrong. He's wrong. Mental health. So anybody who knows the basics about mental health probably knows that the DSM is a diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders. This is kind of the Bible of what's a disorder and how you treat it. This is version 4. We're now into version 5. It's pretty. It's purple. They mention asexuality in it twice as not being a disorder. They're saying, you can't diagnose somebody as having sexual aversion disorder if a self-identification as asexual makes more sense. The problem with that is you have to know. You have to say like, oh no, I'm asexual. I don't have this. Otherwise, they can say, oh, they probably have this. So it's probably not a surprise to anyone in here that homosexuality used to be medicalized as a mental disorder, and it wasn't that long ago. I mean, I believe it was relatively recently in my lifetime, I think.
73.
Oh, was it 73 that they changed over to the 4, to DSM-4? I'm not sure. I think it was in 3. Okay, yeah. So that was slightly before I was born. Well, thank goodness. Anyway, they, there's still some problems with the way they word that, especially since there's this tendency for doctors, professionals who are not always educated about asexuality to project their own prejudices. Did you want to say something?
Oh, sorry, I looked up when it was,
Oh,
and
okay.
it was not completely removed until 1987.
Oh,
It
wow.
was going to bug me if I didn't look it up.
Oh, thank you. Neato, okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
It's fine. Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks. I'm running a little behind. I'm sorry. Okay, so as I said, professionals are not always educated. They are humans. I think most of the time they are.
Except for House. He's probably something else.
They do sometimes push fixes. They say like they're not really. They don't know how to ask the right questions sometimes. They will hear what you're saying and they'll say that's a sexual arousal disorder. You need a libido enhancer. That happened to one of my friends. It had some profound effects on her relationships and her experience of her body. I have also heard about some pretty serious medical abuse, which I won't go into for privacy issues for the person involved, but sometimes they will be so intent that this person needs to be interested in sex, especially if it's a man, honestly, that they'll ignore everything else about their health to try to get them to be sexually active. And they often can't help us except to prescribe, okay, that one's the broken one. We have to make that person want sex more. It's not about what will help compromise-wise to make these people more compatible with each other. So, talking about this is obviously an automatic trigger warning for corrective assault. I'm not going to be specific, but I interviewed for, there was a HuffPost Gay Voices did this really cool 6-part article series on asexuality. I was in a couple of them. Look, it's me. And I talked about one of my experiences where, you know, this guy wanted to kiss me and I said no, and he ended up saying he would settle for a kiss on the cheek. I figured that was harmless until he started licking my face like a dog, and it was really gross. So I got out of the car and he yelled after me, "I just want to help you." And I had disclosed to him over dinner that I was asexual, so that was his way of helping me. He then sent me messages for months afterwards saying, "You want to come over? I'm watching porn," and stuff like that. He also told me, you know, "I thought we were going to have sex that night, and I can tell that you're interested in me and you won't admit it," and, you know, gaslighting, all that fun stuff. So when I talked about this to the media, the comments filled up with people who said, you know, "Well, you're selfish that you don't have sex with people. How dare you?" And they were saying, well, she should be in a situation where she has to experience it, and if she doesn't like it, then, you know, she's appropriately punished for not serving the role that she's expected to as a woman in our society. So we get rape threats and we get denial that we experience those, so that was fun. And this idea that we are depriving our deserving partners of sex is another really insidious manifestation of compulsory sexuality. So moving on to another really heavy topic, depression and suicide. Like I mentioned earlier, the Trevor Project tries to help with all stripes of the LGBTQ rainbow. They are ace-inclusive, and, you know, we were told by some vocal opponents to this that we didn't deserve that. We didn't deserve inclusion in this. I'm not sure what they wanted us to do, especially if, you know, we're experiencing suicidal ideation. You know, just who would have the heart to say you don't deserve help? But this all kind of stems from the disrespect that people who do not serve this heteronormative ideal will experience. And it's a phase, you're trying to be different, all of these are all things that everybody in this community has heard multiple times, and there are a few that are reserved for asexual people. I mean, this kind of the mocking of virginity is a common one, where there's just no nice words for people who don't have sex. It's always pathetic, and especially for some men who are encouraged to define themselves entirely by their sexual success. They feel emasculated by, you know, being told that they're not really a person, they're not really a man, they're not successful if they can't get laid. Women, of course, mostly frigid is usually applied to women. And all this lovely stuff, robotic, alien, inhuman, lacking vitality, all this fun stuff. The invisibility and the pushback that we get when we are visible, that takes root, and it really does sometimes get underestimated as to how these can affect us, how these can form us into a person who thinks there's no place for them in the world. So what we learn from this is that we develop shame, we internalize this oppression, we sometimes will not trust authorities in our lives. We'll feel like we have to impress them or we have to serve their ideal. We may sometimes overcompensate by being very sexual, or I'm going to get married and do what I'm supposed to do even if I don't want it because that's what I'm being told my role is. And these are all ways that this manifests in our lives. So what are we going to do in the future to make sure that this is less common for everybody? I think inclusion by default is a good idea. The problem is, you know, I actually saw this really recently. It was kind of a shock to see this all of a sudden, where somebody was saying on Tumblr, my favorite place, yes, that they're saying, "Hey, remember her?" You know, talking about me. Remember her? Oh my gosh, that was just such a cringe fest. And they were saying, because of activism in the asexual community, we are having all these asexual people storming into our spaces and trying to take it over and making everything all about them. And I'm like, I guess I'm biased, but I've never seen that. I've mostly seen a lot of asexual people afraid that they won't be accepted. But there are problematic individuals, and that's what I think we should address. If there is, I'm not going to say that's never happened. There are individuals who are like, yeah, I am identifying this way, and it's empowering me, and now I'm going to make everything about myself. But you know, I'm going to say something. I'm just going to say it. White, able-bodied, cisgender gay men are frequently in the spotlight. They talk over a lot of people. They, a lot of the activism and resources goes to them. It doesn't mean that they're bad people, but we don't categorically say, well, let's kick them out of the club. You know, we're going to say, if I have an individual in my club who's of this description, who he needs to learn how not to talk over people, etc., you know, you're not going to say, well, his orientation is a bad thing, we should stop including people like him. You're going to say, this person is making this space unsafe. If you have an asexual or a romantic person who's doing that, that's really awful, and I don't support that, but address it as a person and not as, well, all the aces are like that person. I assure you we're not, even if some of us are loud. So.
You've never been to a Wildcards meeting.
My gosh. Oh gosh, I'm getting a foot cramp right here. Let's see, work through it. Okay, so benefits of inclusion for us. I'm going to go with, if we are included, this is what we can expect to see. So of course we can learn how to become better allies to people who are not like us. Being, you know, like I was saying earlier about being on Tumblr, I encountered attitudes that I never, you know, I wasn't opposed to. I wasn't automatically like, hey, this is silly and I don't want to learn about it, but I never thought of that. And when you're in a group of people who share something at the root with you, but they have all these other understandings that you never thought of, you're like, huh, okay, I can learn to, how do they want to be supported? So in those group atmospheres, you will learn to be a better ally in many ways. So also avoiding elitism and slurs. You know, there's a lot of stuff you're not born knowing it. So when you come into a group where, you know, people are saying, oh, we don't talk about that population this way, this is why. You know, you can't figure out how best to talk about other people if you're not listening and they don't tell you. And so if you put yourself, if an asexual person is putting themselves into a group where they're going to hear these conversations, they're going to learn more about how we should talk about each other. Similarly, I have absolutely seen this in the ace community. I will absolutely admit it, that sex non-judgmental positivity sometimes needs to be learned, especially for, you know, baby aces who are like, my manifestation of being proud of my asexuality is to talk about how gross sex is. And, you know, sometimes at the beginning they're like, they need a place to say, like, I think sex is gross, and it's like, yeah, you do too? Okay, you know, that's okay, you know, but you're also yucking someone's yum, and that doesn't feel good, especially since you have to acknowledge that that's what they get from the rest of the world. Don't do that. So sometimes we need a little bit of help and perspective to understand that, you know, talking about being better or purer or something just plays into all of these stereotypes that nobody wants and don't help anybody. So my bullet point here, number 4 of On the Shoulders of Giants, is a really important one. In the queer movement, we have so many leaders who are inspiring and amazing. I would love to see the ACE community and organizations kind of gravitate towards some of the ways of leadership that I've seen do amazing in the queer community over the years. There are so many inspiring figures that, you know, I have taken lessons from, and I just don't see how we could not succeed if we do a lot of the same things that they do. So we have some great examples ahead of us that we can learn more about if we're in these groups. Resources, advice, and support. Of course, if you are part of a group, You will have friends who understand what it's like to be you. You may make friends that you can confide in. And of course, you may have access to a wonderful library and some zines and, just things other people know that you don't know. And also, we start to learn about privilege dynamics. That was a big one for me. I have been fortunate as to I don't remember a whole lot of epic call-outs or anything, but I'm trying to learn to listen as a person who lives with a lot of privilege. I am upper middle class white cis woman who a lot of my identities are privileged, and I've had to listen. I've had to be in places where I hear these conversations to be able to understand how many advantages I have and how not to abuse them, and know how to help dismantle some of these dynamics in ways that allow me to do it following the lead of someone who knows what they're doing. So moving on to benefits of inclusion, because we're not just here to take stuff from the groups that we're part of. Benefits of inclusion for non-ACE and ARO spectrum LGBTQ folks. So what you're going to learn from us if we are in your groups is, of course, we will give you resources on understanding us and learning our terminology. That's kind of an obvious one, but also relationship models. And you may not know quite what I mean by this, but relationship models are really interesting in the ACE community because we're a bunch of nerds, and what I mean when I say that is we've had to pick apart what our relationships are made of because the givens don't necessarily apply. So when you hear people complaining that asexual people have a bunch of made-up words, like, of course we're going to make up words if we need to talk about things nobody has talked about. So we've come up with a lot of language that you may not have heard in mainstream circles, and some of them fit relationships that you may not even realize are in your circle or even in your life. For instance, I have a friend who is a cisgender straight woman who is married to a man, and she said, until I read your book, I didn't know what a romantic orientation is, and I've realized I'm romantically attracted to women as well as to men, but I just thought that it wasn't. It couldn't be romance. It couldn't be I couldn't have a crush on that woman because I'm not sexually attracted to her. So she realized that she spent her whole life having crushes on women, but because it wasn't coupled with sexual attraction, she's biromantic but only heterosexual, and she has words for that now. And it's not just a word. It's like it was a transformation of understanding who she was, and that's important to somebody, even if they're married and in a relationship. It's very important to know that aspect of who you are, and there's lots more like that, I promise. So also the true extent of heteronormativity. It's not just about what happens if you reject traditional understandings of gender or partner choice. Heteronormativity is a little bit bigger than that, because even as an aromantic woman who does not have romantic relationships with anyone, I have still suffered under heteronormativity with, like, why aren't you doing what you were supposed to as a cisgender woman? What happens to people like me? How do I form a life that's meaningful and fulfilling when everybody's telling me I can't be happy how I am? So non-sexual intimacy is another one. This is not to say that you have to give up sex to have non-sexual intimacy, but non-sexual intimacy is really important to any kind of relationships that are intimate in any way. And we sometimes, because we don't really have a choice if we're not sexually attracted to our partners, beyond trying to cultivate intimacy in ways that are not necessarily common, we have a lot of resources on that, a lot of experiences to share. And alternatives to sexualized spaces. This is a difficult one to talk about because, again, a lot of people who are same-sex attracted, they have been shamed. They have been taught that you can't be proud of who you are, and they want to celebrate that in a place that's safe, and they should be allowed to do that. But as a result of that, many LGBTQ spaces are very sexualized in a way that makes some people uncomfortable. And it's not just asexual people, it's some people who just don't want they may not want to be sexual in public, they may not want to witness sexual displays. It doesn't mean like, oh, that person's a prude, they need to get over it. It's just that some people are not comfortable engaging with sexuality in those kinds of spaces. And I think a lot of people in the LGBTQ community would say, I would like that too. I would like a place where that's not really going to be the tone. There needs to be more diversity in the types of experiences we can have. And as when asexual people form groups, a lot of times, of course, it's not very sexualized. I mean, we might make jokes and stuff. Like a lot of us still use a lot of really colorful language, but at the same time, you know, you're usually not going to see somebody, you know, displaying sexual behavior in ways that sometimes you'll see it in a pride float or something like that. And you know, I don't want to say like, oh, there's a time and a place, because I feel like people who are gay should be allowed to have the same opportunities to not be shamed for their sexuality, just like straight people have always taken for granted, but there should be alternatives. And finally, of course, resources for LGBTQ partners of ACEs and AROs, because some of you may want to date us. And so imagine that, right? There are mixed orientation couples all the time. There are mixed orientation groups. And there are different kinds of partnerships. So resources to understand how to get along with us and to maybe not internalize any kind of feelings of rejection that you may feel from the person not desiring you sexually. Like there's all kinds of stuff to talk about that we can help you with if you're interested. So finally, the last piece here, and this is very brief, is media, art, and music. Okay, I love media because it's sort of a shortcut to understanding who we are as people in the world. If you're represented in media, you're here, everyone knows that there are stories about you, you're real. Someone else has experienced what you've been through. But like I said before, sometimes the words that are used to talk about us are not nice. If you don't have nice words for people like you, if words for people like me are spinster, and you know, just I don't know. I can't really be a cat lady. I don't even have cats. But the ideas about, say, women who live by themselves without a romantic partner, nobody seems to see that as positive. All the stories about us are, we're creepy, we're weird, we're lonely. And when all the media displays us like that, we internalize that and we say, I won't be able to be happy in my adult life if I don't find a partner, or at least if I'm not alone. So media, art, and music is more than just not being about sex. It doesn't become an asexual inclusive piece just because it excludes sex, but that's kind of the closest we have right now most of the time. So sometimes asexual people will be like, I really like this because it doesn't depend on, you know, relating to a romantic or a sexual desire to enjoy what's going on. And so, like, a lot of us will say, you know, I prefer watching children's entertainment because usually it's not explicit. Like, that's part of how we get our childish images, you know, that it's a thing that children do that before we're mature. And, you know, I love cartoons. So it's like, you know, how much music out there is about like, I love being alone. You hear them occasionally. They're usually like power ballads about like, I'm single and I'm awesome, but
This is a great song from Fallout.
they still, huh?
This is a great song from Fallout, New Vegas.
Oh my god.
You must share. You must share.
Chico Tango.
Without Fallout.
I feel pulled out.
Oh my goodness. So our media representation is often actively harmful, or it just leaves us out. If we're on the screen but we're fixed with hormones or we're treated like a liar, obviously not just us but everyone who is in our lives will internalize that about us. It's very powerful. And if we're not represented, it makes us feel like nobody's talking about this, nobody else must be experiencing it. Media is how humanity talks to itself. If we're not in it, we feel like no one's talking about us, no one's talking to us, we're not part of the global conversation. And that's kind of a tragedy. And so we're trying to make more of it ourselves, but we also need people who are not asexual or not aromantic to see these good examples so that they know we're here too and they don't accidentally contribute to the erasure and the terrible messages that we're all hearing every day. And so, this is my last slide. It has the question mark. I'm ready for any questions if anyone wants to submit some. Do we have time? Okay.
Go down rows and collect.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to pass back our blank cards too, that would be good so then we can split up.
I went 5 minutes over, but that's not too bad.
I love professors, you're so much worse than
I know.
I'm gonna grab two so we don't know who wrote on what.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Cool.
We only have kind of memes here. Memes are always
great.
welcome.
Oh gosh, am I gonna get memes?
Oh, you were definitely getting memes.
Oh my goodness.
I just have a couple.
Okay.
Should we try to separate out the blanks and the memes?
Yeah.
What?
I have to write it down.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah, that's okay, these two, it says come back.
Should I go ahead and read some of these? And for those who are staying, I can try to answer. And I'll try to keep it brief because I know some people are hungry and some people just want me to stop talking. Okay. So this says, what's your best response to it's just a phase? Honestly, my best response to that is, well, okay, maybe it is. A lot of times if you acknowledge at first, like, yeah, I might be wrong about myself. It's not a decision. I didn't decide I'm asexual. But everyone, including the person asking you to defend whether it's a phase, their sexuality is their best guess based on their past and their present. And your past and your present is how you navigate what you expect to happen in the future with your sexuality. Everybody is going on incomplete data. You haven't met every person in the world, so you don't know you can't be attracted to some person you haven't met. That is true for us, that is true for them. And if it's just a phase, then I'll change what I call myself. But until or unless that happens, I do expect you to respect what I'm calling myself now, just out of, basic, decent humanity. So, thank you. All right, let me see. This looks like it says intersection of asexuality and being POC. Is that what that says? I think so. As a white woman, I don't have that much to say about it, but I will say that I talked to a lot of people of color for my book. And one thing that primarily the black women and the Latina women who talked to me, they said that it was difficult sometimes to separate out how much being sexualized as a minority, exotic kind of damaging tropes about them, what they're like sexually. They've said, I'll never know who I might have been if I hadn't experienced those, and how much of my asexuality is a reaction to that. So that's frustrating, but it's also one of the things they said is that because so much of the activism and so much of the in-person interaction in asexual communities is very white, that they sometimes feel that they don't belong, that there's racism within the communities. I have seen that. That is true. I have seen racism in ace spaces that really kind of messed me up when I first saw it, and I can't even imagine how bad it must have been for the people that it was directed at. I'm really embarrassed about that on behalf of them. One thing that they have said is that they risk losing the support of their racial group, sometimes like their family that they may have very tight ties to, and religious groups that they may be part of. They feel that they are risking something that they need in their lives by saying, well, this is how my orientation is. They may feel that they're risking a community that they can't risk in a world that they don't have this other support that a lot of us who have more mainstream identities, we don't risk as much by coming out. And that's one major thing that I learned from talking to these folks. From the men, I've seen a lot of Asian men are desexualized a lot, while Asian women are sometimes like a fetish, and that's really messed up too. So some of the folks that I talked to about that say that their identities, it made it very difficult to talk in mainstream, what passes for mainstream ace spaces, because their special experiences are so isolated, they're so like unusual within an unusual group. It's so hard to find somebody else who has experienced that. The first asexual conference, the first conference I went to that had an asexual group, they had an Asian and Pacific Islander caucus, which is really interesting. Obviously I didn't go, so I didn't hear what was going on, but there are, occasionally they will make spaces for people to talk about their intersections and how it's affected them. Let me see, what else have I got here? Have you spoken to Anthony Bogart? What is your opinion on his work? I have really only seen cherry-picked quotes from Anthony Bogart. I haven't read his book, and I have not spoken to him, but all I know is we were in some of the same stuff. A lot of times he gets interviewed and I get interviewed. And he wrote a book before me, but it's not from an asexual perspective, it's from an academic perspective. I don't know how accurate it is, and I know that as an outsider to the community, he can still do some good, but he's never going to quite have the same goals as we do. So when I wrote my book, I wanted it to be from an asexual perspective. I think it's particularly valuable because of that, but my book is not a scientific book at all. So, I don't know sometimes if I should recommend Anthony Bogart's book because I haven't personally read it, but mostly I just acknowledge that he exists, and he also, I believe, has worked with Lori Brotto, who is another common researcher of asexuality. She seems to be a little bit more active with sort of the activism aspect. I believe she was one of the people who was instrumental in getting asexuality mentioned in the DSM-5. So I'm sorry that it's only kind of a partial answer to your question because I really haven't had a lot of experience with Anthony Bogart. There's a few things on here. Let's see, a question. One argument I've heard against asexuality is that by separating sexual and romantic attraction, we perpetuate the connection between homosexuality and hypersexuality, which is harmful. What would be your response to this? I'm not sure how homosexuality and hypersexuality is distinguished, like how that is hurt more by separating sexual and romantic attraction. But I think what I've seen is, let's see, I think we have proof that a sexual attraction to someone can sometimes not manifest with a romantic attraction, but I think that because most people experience them together, it is still useful to talk about them like they're intertwined when they are. I think we also need to acknowledge that some of us don't experience it that way. But I don't know if I understand exactly how it perpetuates the connection between homosexuality and hypersexuality, but maybe it's because there is definitely this perception that especially gay men are over-sexualized, that that if they are given the spotlight, they're just gonna use it for deviance or something. I don't know. It's definitely a harmful idea that homosexuality is hypersexuality. I don't think I quite follow the logic, though. I don't know how to respond to it. I think I would need a little bit more elaboration from a person who's alleging this. I don't know if I've really come across that, honestly. I've definitely come across the idea that hypersexuality and homosexuality are linked, which is, you know, harmful. I don't know if I've seen someone make that connection. The next question on here says, one thing I've noticed is there's a clear difference between how I experience my sexuality and how my other queer friends experience their sexuality, because for them it does have a sexual component that I just don't experience. Often I've wondered if that may justify some of the whole "your experience is different, you don't belong here" rhetoric. I was wondering what your thoughts on that, the difference, I mean. Well, here's the thing, like, everybody in the LGBTQ community does have a different experience, and you can't necessarily say, you know, I'm different from you because I don't experience sexual attraction and all of you do, but you know, I'm also a lot of people who are gay are also cisgender. A lot of people who are trans are not gay, or they are gay. You know, they're going to have different experiences. They're going to have different intersections. And I think that it is true that we're not having an experience that they have, but I don't think that means we don't belong here, because you could probably find a reason for a lot of folks that are in LGBTQ spaces that have one of the letters. You could probably say, well, I mean, if you're a trans person and you're a trans person who is frequently misinterpreted as cis, and you know, a lot of people don't know you're trans, you know, do you still belong here if you're not experiencing transphobia every day? But of course transphobia still affects that person. Of course that person still wants trans friends. So it's like, yes, that person is definitely going to have a different experience in the world from somebody who's more visibly trans or somebody who is not transitioning medically. But both of them are trans people. Both of them have important things to gain and contribute to these groups. I think it would be wrong-headed to identify one aspect of something that most of us experience and a minority of us don't, and say, well, let's just say that those people don't belong here. Okay, let's weed out them, and you're a trans person, but you're straight, so get out of here. You know, there's all of us are going to share space with people who have at least a few mainstream identities that privilege them. And I think that what we have in common is more important. Okay, let's see. In your talk, you frequently equate being asexual and not wanting to have sex. Do you think someone cannot experience sexual attraction and also be comfortable, for lack of a better word, with having sex? Yes, absolutely. There are sex positive and there are sex desiring asexual people. Actually, I would say this kind of gets a little bit into another category of discussion, but in my book I do talk about kinky asexual people, and actually even people who are not asexual who might be kinky. They don't necessarily have to be attracted to the person who's giving them a sexual experience that they desire. A lot of people say, I like sex, I'm not necessarily into you, but I'll take sex from you because I like sex. Some asexual people, it's a minority, but some asexual people do that. Some of us enjoy self-stimulation. Some of us are willing to compromise. Maybe we don't necessarily enjoy it, but we enjoy some aspects of what that connection brings to us. We may not intrinsically enjoy sex, but we might be willing to do it for other reasons that are valuable to us. Hopefully it's not in a coercive situation, because there is a lot of that. I definitely don't think that being asexual is about not having sex, but for me that was a big part of how I discovered I was asexual, because I didn't want to do this thing that nobody else they seem to recognize anyone could ever want to refuse if they could get it. And they're just telling me that it has to be fear-based or something. So I kind of formed an identity partly around what I didn't want to do, and I only later modified my term for myself as not experiencing sexual attraction when I realized it was more accurate. But I also don't want to have sex. That's true for me too. And the behavior and the orientation being different is an important distinction. And so I think with being asexual and still wanting to have sex, it's not common. It's not vanishingly rare. But one of the dangers with putting a lot of attention on that is that the mainstream will gobble that up and say, well, asexual people still have sex. They still compromise. You can still have sex with them. And you know, you see a lot of that in, I've seen some folks discussing the dangers of emphasizing that too much because it's what is already emphasized in society, that you're still expected to compromise even if you don't desire it. It's a very complicated question, it's true. But for some of us, it's very hard to parse out how much of our attraction is because it's expected of us. So let's see. Did I go through all the ones on the cards? Does anyone else have one? Because I think I only got these. And if anybody wants to say one, you can too. Okay. Well, I don't have any more index cards, so, and my computer has gone dark, so it's telling me to shut up. So again, I have some sheets here if you want to take home an asexual bingo card. If you want to look at the book, it's there, and my card is here. So come grab one if you want some freebies. And thank you so much for listening to me for like an hour and a half. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right.